You do not have a right to make these law enforcement officers victims of crimes. Let's bring in former acting Homeland Security Secretary and America First Policy Institute Executive Vice President Chad Wolf. Chad, what do these Democrats want to happen to these members of law enforcement?
Well, I think they're getting what they're asking for, which is obviously ICE law enforcement is being targeted. You talked about, vehicles being rammed, but they are also being targeted other ways as well. And so when you have Governor Pritzker and Governor Newsom say these absolutely terrible things about ICE law enforcement, they have to understand that citizens in those states as well as others are listening to them. And there are repercussions for the types of rhetoric that they are using. First of all, they're totally incorrect. They're ignorant about ICE. They're ignorant about law enforcement. And so what they're saying doesn't make sense to many Americans. But unfortunately, those on the left in those states and in those cities do listen to those governors, those elected officials. And so they have culpability in the type of rhetoric and the type of words that they're saying.
Chad, the Trump administration is sort of doing a whole of government approach right now to look into coordination with a lot of this stuff, whether it be the riots or these bounties that have been placed on the heads of ICE agents. Now we've got these vehicle rammings as well. How coordinated do you think these are? Or are they just spontaneous? How do you view it?
No, I don't think they're spontaneous. Look, I don't believe in coincidence that much when you have this many incidents occurring. They're obviously being coached. They're being provided information on how to do this. Look, I know the Department of Justice at the direction of President Trump is investigating a lot of these groups, investigating their tactics, how they're being funded. What does that coordination look like? We still don't know a lot of that. And I think understanding that and pulling the string on a lot of that will help us understand how they operate. And so really, really important to understand how they are attacking law enforcement and the methods and the tactics they are using. So really important what Department of Justice is doing under AG Bondi. And you really need to get out that. But at the same time, I think President Trump and his administration have been very forceful in calling out these other elected officials, whether they be governors or mayors, that the rhetoric that they're using is not only, it's just terrible. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's beyond words. When they call them Nazis and Gestapo, it's beyond words calling a law enforcement official those terms.
I want to see them use the RICO statutes. That'll teach them. Let's move on to something that you wrote about. And I found it fascinating because there's so much focus on Communist China, President Trump's meeting with Xi Jinping. But it's how Communist China is infiltrating our healthcare system, Chad, not through pharmaceuticals. We know the risk there, but through medical devices. And you go into great detail about, say, medical hardware from imaging companies that have relationships with the Communist Party of China, of software backdoors on devices for patient monitors. I could go on. What's the risk, but should these devices be banned here in the United States?
Well, I think we should certainly take a look at that. Look, I think President Trump's been absolutely spot on, really, taking a hard line with China. And I think most people now understand that they are an adversary. But it goes beyond just trade tariffs, and it goes beyond military to military. What we see here in the United States is a whole host of Chinese and Communist Party related companies operating here in the United States. And I would say data collection here in the United States. And it's things from drone technology to medical devices. There are pharmaceutical concerns, as you indicated, and elsewhere. And it's everyday products that we really need to take a hard look at and understand, not to mention all the different types of equipment that the federal government procures as well. So there's a lot that we need to dig into. The medical devices industry and how that's being infiltrated, I would say, by Communist Party China companies that certainly listen to the Communist Party there. We really need to understand that, to understand what type of data is being transferred back to the Communist Party, and then what type of insights do they have here in the United States.
Well, and Chad, real quick, what do they intend to do with that information and that data?
Well, it's a good question. I think they're collecting data on a variety of different fronts. Look, they are trying to supplant the United States as the world superpower. And it's not necessarily a military conflict, right? It is an economic conflict. So anytime that they're able to collect data and to understand how United States, citizens operate, what, the state of their healthcare industry, a variety of different things, it all goes back into understanding your adversary in a better way. And so I think that's what they are doing. And again, they are very good at this. Throughout a variety of different industries. And I think that's something that the American people don't quite understand yet. I think they understand the adversarial relationship when it comes to military and perhaps some espionage, but it goes far deeper than that.
Right.
Thank you, Chad. Chad Wolf, great to see you.
Thank you, sir.